Today's episode is going to be kind of short and sweet, and it is going to be all about insurance and being a therapist. So, I knew the basics of insurance starting out, mostly just because of having had insurance. So, I knew kind of some of the terms, like deductibles and copays and stuff along those lines, but I really didn't understand much about how it worked. And a lot of the jobs I had in the beginning of starting out or internships, whether it was like hospital, community mental health, working with the military, like none of those were jobs where it really affected me at all about the client's insurance. I didn't do any billing. I didn't, know most of the time whether or not they had insurance. Like those were all things that were handled by somebody else. And my pay was not dependent in any way on insurance. I was salary. So I really didn't understand that much about it. But once I was like getting ready to go into a private practice setting and I was going to start working at a group practice, I had to learn really quick how complicated this world of insurance is when you're in some kind of private practice setting. And since I didn't know a lot of this, and these are, again, things that are not taught in grad school, and that's the entire purpose of this channel, I want to cover that with you all today. So when I was looking at group practice jobs, I was excited because I seen on the website, they're charging like $140 an hour, they're charging $150 an hour for their rate. And I was like, oh, wow, that's going to be a huge upgrade from what I'm making now. It wasn't until I started working and things were sort of broken down for me that I realized that it's not that simple. So if you work at a private practice or you want to start a private practice and they take insurance, it kind of doesn't matter what their self-pay rate is if the majority of the clients come in and are insurance based. So for example, if you work at a group practice and the self-pay rate is $150, but your practice signed a contract with, say, Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? And what happens is when you sign a contract, or the place you work at signs a contract with insurance companies, the insurance company is the one that decides what the rate is. So they ultimately decide what you get paid. It doesn't matter what it says on your website or what you charge people who are self-pay, because Blue Cross says, or again, Aetna, Cigna, any of the other ones that are out here, they say, okay, if you're going to be contracted with us, we will give you clients and we'll pay you for the services, but this is the amount we're paying you. And so you get a contract letter that says whatever that rate is. And typically there's quite a few rates because there's different lengths of sessions. And I'll go over those in a second. So if Blue Cross Blue Shield says you get paid $100 for a 60-minute session, it doesn't matter if your rate for self-pay or your rate you want to put out here is $150. You can only charge the client $100. And typically the way it goes is you can only charge them whatever their copay is. And then you submit the documents to the insurance company and then they pay you the remainder of that. So you can only charge the copay, and that's all part of your contract. So the insurance company is the one that sets the rates, and typically they're going to be lower, sometimes much lower than what your contracted rate is. So when I'm going into group practice thinking, I'm making $150 an hour, this is insane, doing all this math about like how many clients to see and how much money I'm going to make and all this stuff. No. Some of the insurances at that time that, were being taken by that place, they were paying $85, $86, somewhere in the 80s, a session for 60 minutes. Some of them were paying around like the 90s or around like 100, 101, something like that. And so it doesn't matter what your rate is. So that is not something that I knew. And I often see in a lot of the therapist Facebook groups, therapists who are starting private practice saying, well, my rate is $150 and Blue Cross is only going to give me $100. So can I charge the client for the extra $50 that they owe me? And the answer is no, that's illegal. then that's called balance billing. So that means that you're going against your contract and you're upcharging the client. So if you have already signed a contract with this company, anybody that comes in from that insurance company, you already have the limit of what you can charge them. Even your no-show fee or late cancellation fee is going to have to be kind of parallel to what it is. So if you can only charge them $100 for their insurance, so now you can only charge them $100 for the no-show typically. Anything else could be a violation of your contract. So another thing that I personally think is extremely shady about the insurance process is typically once you sign a contract with an insurance company, you're not allowed to tell anybody what the rate is that they're paying you. This feels very like don't ask, don't tell to me, and I don't like it because they say that they don't want people in the community being able to, disclose private information, blah, blah, blah. To me, it feels like they don't want anybody to know that other people may get reimbursed at a higher rate than they are. So they don't want you guys talking. It's kind of like if you've ever worked at a place where you're highly discouraged from talking about how much you make. And then once you start talking to some people and people share, then you're like, what? Why is that person getting paid $10,000 more a year than me and I've been here longer? Or those types of things. They don't want to deal with the drama. But what's crazy is it shouldn't be drama if everybody's getting paid the same. Or at least relevant to how long you've been contracted. But that's not how it works. So it could be very frustrating because unless you work for that company that has the contract, you won't know what other practices other people are getting paid without violating that contract. It's like a code of silence. So I find that very bizarre, but that's how they all do it. So ultimately, the insurance company is going to decide what you get paid. Now, if you have a client who comes in and for some reason they don't want to use their insurance, you can have them sign an opt-out form, and then they have to sign that they are the ones saying they do not want to use their insurance. You put that in their chart, and then you can charge them your self-pay rate. But that's going to be few and far between. If you take insurance, most clients are going to come to you because you take their insurance. So that can be a little bit tricky when you're starting out and you really don't have much control over what you're getting paid. So now on the other hand, you're going to be very accessible to a lot more people because you're taking insurance. So that may mean that you're getting more clients. So maybe you're getting paid at a lower rate than a self-pay person, but you could potentially be getting more clients and more steady referrals, where the person who's doing self-pay is going to be getting paid more than you because they set their rate, but they're not going to have potentially as many clients coming in. Now there's exceptions to both, but typically that's how it is. If you're self-pay, you're going to have to market a little bit more because people can't just find you through their insurance website, or if they're on like Psychology Today, they can't just see you when they filter through for their insurance. You're not going to pop up if you're self-pay. So I think there's this misconception that, taking insurance is, going to be like, it's like the way to work. It's a way to work in private practice, but it doesn't come without its own hiccups, right? So, if you want to get a raise from that insurance, typically some of them give raises yearly or every couple years, but the majority of the time you have to send a letter to that insurance company essentially like proving why you need a raise, and then it's ultimately up to them whether you get it or not. So that part's a little bit tricky. I think that frustrates some people because if you're on the self-pay side, you can just decide when you want to raise your rates. You have to have it in your informed consent and contracts with clients, but you can just decide every 6 months, every year, I want to raise it, and you do. So there's definitely some differences, but like I said, you also become more accessible to a lot of clients. So you might have, like I said, steadier stream, or clients who might stay with you longer because financial stuff doesn't impact their care as much if they just have a copay. There's a lot of like nuances to this too, because anytime a client switches insurance, I've seen a lot of times where therapists, been working with a client for a long time, then client changes jobs, they now have a new insurance, and so if that therapist doesn't take the insurance, then that can get tricky because the client may not be able to see them anymore if they really heavily rely on that, or sometimes depending on what the rates are. I've seen also insurance companies drop rates. So instead of giving a raise the next year, they've actually like gone down a couple dollars in what they pay you. So that can be really tough, just being at the mercy of them. But at the same time, again, there's benefits too. So you really have to figure out what works best for you. Also with insurance, it may take a couple weeks to get paid, and there's potentially clawbacks, which is where the insurance company might say, we don't really think that client needed therapy for those last 2 or 3 months. You didn't justify it well enough, so we're going to need you to pay us back for all of that. And that's a risk. I don't think that happens super frequently, but it is something that can happen because the insurance is involved in the payment, right? They're paying you. And sometimes they can audit you as a provider. And I've seen that happen quite a bit. So they can say, hey, for this one client, we need all of the notes. We need to see everything that you have for them. And we need to review it to justify whether or not they really needed mental health services. So that could be tricky. Also with insurance, you have to diagnose a client with something from the DSM and not a Z code. So it can't be any type of like phase of life problem or grief or something that's one of those Z codes. It has to be one of the major codes. So major depression, bipolar, like it has to be something like that. So that can be tough for people sometimes because they may get a client who's like, I just really want to work on my self-esteem. And if you're taking insurance, there's not a code for that. So depending on what's caused their low self-esteem, there may be some kind of adjustment disorder. But if not, then you can't see that client and take their insurance because you can't bill them when there's no diagnostic code. Whereas if you're self-pay, you don't have to put a code. You don't even need a diagnosis. You could put a Z code, you could just put random goals, but that the client sets. But unless they're going to file for reimbursement, a super bill, and that's a whole nother video in itself. Unless that client's seeking reimbursement from their insurance company, you don't have to put a diagnosis. So if you take insurance, again, you'll be accessible to a lot of clients, but you're going to have to make sure that everybody has a diagnosable condition or you can't see them using that insurance. So now the next part of this is CPT codes. So CPT means current procedural terminology. So basically all that is it's a billing code that all medical people use. So for therapists, we have a few that we typically use the most. And it'll be good to kind of memorize these. I made a cheat sheet down below if you want to be able to like have it posted somewhere or have a reference point, especially as you're starting in your career and you're learning what they are. I know I had to look at them a bunch of times to understand because all the codes differ by like a number and or by like the minutes. So it can be very tricky sometimes. But when you are taking insurance, you have to very strictly follow these CPT codes. So the codes go by the service you render and how long it was. So you need to know both of those in order to properly, ethically, legally bill for somebody. So, and on the self-pay side, again, if somebody's going to file for reimbursement, you're going to want to know these codes and have them documented as well because that's essential to them getting paid back. So you kind of have to follow the same rules as insurance. You just don't get paid by insurance. You get paid by the person and they get reimbursed by insurance. So that'll probably be the next video will be about that. But since we're focusing on insurance today, the CPT codes are essential to the billing process and you want to make sure you get them right. One, so that you could be like legal and ethically like aligned, and also so that there's no disruption in the billing process. So for the codes, I'll explain each of them, but like I said, I'm a visual person, so I need to see what they are. So download the cheat sheet. But for most therapists, these are the common codes that we all use. So the first one is 90791. So that one is your intake code. So the first time you see a client, or once a year, potentially, if you want to reevaluate them, you use that code. And so that intake code doesn't really have a minutes limitation on it. So your intake might be 60 minutes, it might be 90 minutes. So it's really just the intake session is that code. So the whole assessment, diagnostic, all of that stuff, that will be that first code. So typically, again, you use it maybe once a year with each client. I think you can only bill that intake code once a year for the client. So makes sense. But that one typically pays a little bit more than a 60-minute session because it can be more intensive. There's more paperwork, and sometimes it is 90 minutes for people. So I think it makes sense that you would get paid a little bit more for that code. The next code is the one that a lot of therapists use, which is 90837. So that one means you had a 60-minute session. So that's what it's called. Psychotherapy 60 minutes, right? But because nothing in this field is super easy, when you're calling it a 60-minute session, in reality, the actual disclaimer is that it's between 53 and 60 minutes. So it could also be above 60 minutes. But it's 53 plus minutes is technically, I think, what it is. So if you saw a client for 54 minutes, for 64 minutes, you would use that code. Now, this is where it's annoying to me. The next code is for a 45-minute session. But with that one, which is 90834, if you've seen a client for 38 minutes to 52 minutes, it is technically a 45-minute session. So that can be very frustrating for people because typically, if the lower you go down, so a 60-minute session, say it pays $100, right, for insurance. A 45-minute session might pay you $85. So that 1 minute, if it's 52 minutes, you're getting paid $85. If it's 53, you're getting paid $100. So those minutes count. And a lot of times your notes will ask you for not only like the start time or maybe the end time, but some of them will say like the duration of the session. And that's an entire section of your note in itself. So that way, when you're doing the billing code, you can also say like it started at this time and it ended at this time. And this is the amount of time it was, so that everything lines up in your note. And I know for some therapists, they get really frustrated because if by 50 minutes, the client's done talking, they're done talking. Well, now it's a 45-minute session, even though it was super close to an hour. And it's not ethical to be like, let me let the client talk for 3 more minutes. Let me ask them about their weekends. Let me do whatever to try to get it to stretch. Like, that's really bad. Not ethical at all. So it can be tough because, again, if you're taking insurance, you have to abide by these rules. And you have to code it appropriately. So you're stuck. And it's that 38 to 52 minutes. Now, if you have a session that's less than that, the next one is 90832, and that one is 16 minutes to 37 minutes. So if a client comes in, they're there for 10 minutes, they're sick, they leave early or log out early, you can't bill for that. It's only 10 minutes. You can't bill for anything less than 16 minutes. So now you're stuck there. Also, the 30-minute sessions are going to charge, or you're going to get paid a lot less too. So say it's $100 for 60 minutes, might be 85 or less for the 45-minute. You might only be getting paid like 50 something, 60 for the 30-minute session. So, and I've seen the drop be even bigger than that in the range in between sessions. So for the minutes. So it's super important that you document the start time, the end time, and the duration, and you code it appropriately. And you have to be paying a lot of attention to those minutes to make sure that everything's good. I think that that's something that can be very, like I said, very frustrating to clients who are like, well, the person logged in 15 minutes early, so I'm in here thinking like, as I'm estimating my income, that I'm going to get paid for 60-minute sessions this week. And this person was late, and this one was sick, and this one was this. And then now your income just dropped a lot. Even though you reserved the whole hour for the person, you can't bill for that hour. You didn't see them for that hour. And that's something I see come up in a lot of the therapy Facebook groups too, is people don't understand that you can literally only bill for the time the client was in front of you and you were doing therapy. So you can't say, well, they logged in 15 minutes early. I was still sitting there on time, and that's when their session started, so I'm going to bill them for the hour. That's fraud. So you want to make sure, especially as you're starting out, that you're doing it on the right foot and everything's ethical. Because you don't want to get in trouble with any of this. You don't want the client to come back and say like, you know, why does this say that we met for 60 minutes when I only met with you for 30? And that causes a whole issue. So yeah, there's just a lot of stuff with that you need to be really mindful of. There's a couple other codes that therapists tend to use too, especially if you're doing a lot of family sessions or you work with kids. So 90846 is family therapy without the patient present. So say that you see a kid, but the parents want to meet with you to discuss parenting strategies. That's the code that you would use when you only meet with the parents and the kid's not present. But if you're doing a whole family session, then you would use the next code, which is 90847, and that's family therapy with the client present. So that's where you would have everybody there, and that's the code that you would use. So those are helpful to know too if you're in that space. Also, 90853 is group therapy. I know that one's a little bit more rare, but that would be the code that you would use if you're running groups too. And I don't think that there's a minute limitation on that one, but you might want to double check. But I don't think that there is. So also with insurance, something else that can be kind of annoying is typically, and this makes no sense to me, be honest, but family sessions pay much less than individual sessions. You may see, like I said, say that it's $100 for a 60-minute session. A family session might be like 80 or 75. Like there could be a significant drop. And the part that doesn't make sense to me is, one, it's more people. So in a lot of ways, it's more work. It's more navigating. Sometimes there's a lot of fighting and yelling. And like, you're really going through it yourself as the therapist in these family sessions. Why wouldn't you get paid more? But for whatever reason, that's not how it works. The other thing that's kind of controversial about those codes is if you're a couples therapist, it's very divided. Some people say that they use that family therapy code, even if it's couples therapy, but that means they have to identify one of the people in the couple. One of the people in the couple has to be like the identified client, and they have to have a diagnosis. So if a husband and wife are coming in and the husband has PTSD and the wife it's affecting their relationship, and the wife's, trying to learn how to be there for him, but also their marriage is suffering, then if you felt comfortable, and some therapists don't, but if you felt comfortable calling it family therapy and using that code, you would have to put him as the established client. So he would be the one whose chart you open with all of his information and bill under his diagnosis. And then, you could have whatever paperwork and intake stuff for her, but you would have to make sure that everything was billed technically under him and his insurance because he has a diagnosis. Now, some couples therapists, they don't feel comfortable doing that, either because they don't want to call it family therapy when it's couples therapy, and there's no code for couples therapy. There's no billable code. So sometimes people don't feel comfortable doing that, so they don't. Or you might have a couple come in, and if they're like, our communication just sucks. We are having a really hard time getting on the same page, and we're arguing a lot. And neither of them has a mental health issue, and there's nothing you can actually diagnose, then you can't bill for that. There's no mental health issue, right? Like this is more of like a Z code thing. So you couldn't bill their insurance. So a lot of therapists I've seen who take insurance, sometimes will take insurance for individual clients. But if you're a couple coming in, you have to do self-pay. And that's how they navigate that. So it's really up to you and, what you feel comfortable with. Some of them, it doesn't even matter if one of the people has a diagnosis. They're not even going to mess with that. They're not even going to use a family therapy code. If to them it's not family therapy, it's couples. So it's whatever works for you and whatever you feel comfortable with. I think therapists should have, like every therapist, even if you work at a group practice, if you work at a hospital, anywhere, you should have your own liability insurance. So you have your own lawyer, you have your own access to resources, because a lot of times the group practice or the hospital or whatever will say like, oh yeah, we have you covered under our liability insurance. But if something goes down, that insurance is to protect the company. That's not for you. So sometimes it's nice, even if they have certain policies for the practice and they're not aligned with you, to be able to make your own decisions and have your own outlet for discussing those things. So keep that in mind too. But yeah. And then on the self-pay side, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many minutes. I can have somebody log in for 30 minutes and be like, I don't got nothing else to talk about. And we end the session and I can charge them for the whole hour because they took up my whole hour. I can't do nothing else. I booked the whole thing for them. So there's definitely some differences. But, you know, on the insurance side, again, like I think there's a lot of benefits. And for some people, there's peace of mind and just knowing that they're going to have consistent clients for the most part. You do have to market some typically, and obviously have like a good website and things that are speaking to your ideal clients and all of that. But I think, you know, there's a lot of nuances to taking insurance that most therapists don't learn anything about in school. We actually don't even learn anything about this personally. Like, why in high school are we not having a class on what are deductibles and coinsurance and, you know, out of network and like all of these terms that I feel like nobody really understands unless you're either in medical care or you have had something happen where you've had to learn these terms for yourself or for a family member. So it's just another issue with the system, in my opinion. But yeah, I hope that this was clarifying today. If you want to take insurance or you are going to work at a place that takes insurance, just to really understand all of the basic terms and what the contracts can be like, and know that whatever your rate is not a guarantee of what you're going to get paid. And however many minutes you see the client is really the deterrent, that in the contract, of how much you're actually going to get paid per session. So it's really good to have all of those things in mind, especially as you're trying to budget, as you're trying to figure out what your career moves are going to be. If you're in a state of your life or like a stage of your career where you're like, I want to open my own practice, it's good to have a full understanding of what taking insurance looks like before you decide on what type of practice you're going to have. So I hope that this was helpful today. I wish that I'd known a lot of this because my head got real big going like, oh, $150 an hour. Like, okay, this is amazing. And then it was like, just kidding. You're actually going to get paid like in the 80s for a 60-minute session. If it's less, it's less. But I think it's, brought me down real fast. And that's why I'm currently self-pay. But I have friends, pretty much all my friends actually take insurance. And they have really successful practices. So it's really what you, like I said, what you are willing to do, how you're willing to structure your pay, how much you want to market, and what is going to serve not just the clients you want to see, but yourself too, because taking insurance requires a lot of extra work. So good luck with everything. I'm sure we'll have more episodes about more of like the terminology and, you know, the technology and the different things that go into taking insurance from somebody who does it, so that you all can understand more of those nuances. But if you want to go ahead and download that form, use that as a cheat sheet for a bit to help you understand the minute codes and all of that so that you're billing properly, then go for it. Also, if you want to subscribe, you could stay on top of future episodes, and that would really help me out to keep doing all of this for free. And yeah, I hope to see you next time. Thank you. Bye.